Anti-vaxxers hold a special place in all of our hearts here at Conspirituality. And you write that pandemic was one of the entry points for QAnon into wellness world. As we mentioned earlier, Mickey Willis has a new book coming out on my former publisher, who I didn't know was an anti-vaxxer when I published with them. So that was fun to find out. You also mentioned Wayfair, of course. Save the Children was the big hashtag. But, we are watching all of these figures that we're tracking move on and still take the ideology. We're trying to figure out where the pivot is. And I'm wondering, specifically in the wellness space, if you're seeing any pivots, or do you know how QAnon, being leaderless in its way, how it will perpetuate in these spaces?
Yeah, I'm not seeing pivoting so far. What I'm really seeing more is just a mixing together of everything. So now you can find a person who's in this conspiracy world, and they will be an anti-vaxxer, but they will also think the election was stolen. And they will also think that Hillary Clinton has a giant body count. And they will also think that 5G is sending out microwaves into our brains. There's no silos anymore. Everything is now the same thing. And if you want to call that QAnon, that's fine. It's going to be something else down the road.
Yeah, and yet, Mike, it seems to me that often those kinds of people, if you say, "Well, that's QAnon," they're like, "No." Oh,
I'm not one of those crazy people.
No. Yeah, I'm not one of those crazy people. I just think 5G is probably really bad.
I just think all the same things that QAnon thinks, but I'm not that.
Well, it's interesting that in that way, the QAnon brand has both allowed wellness influencers to juice up their content with inflammatory rhetoric and a lot of heinous imagery, while not committing to it whole hog. And so I think what we see is amongst the influencers that we study is that there can be a flirting with the hashtags. There can be coming close to the edge of talking about the cabal in very explicit terms. But then there's always a plausible deniability. There's always a way of pushing it back. But by that point, the damage is done because they've already juiced the algorithm to go towards more of that content for their followers.
Yeah. They've already thrown it out there.
They have already.
Just in their just asking questions, they're enabling, they're making it okay to talk about this stuff. And you get this with these Instagram influencers who have millions of followers, and they put this on their own personal pages. We need to be talking about this. What's really going on here? It's not really making it's not saying anything, but it's endorsing these ideas simply by talking about them.
Yeah. And then saying something like, well, only people who are not curious at all believe the mainstream narrative. These are certainly questions that need to be asked. So along those lines, in terms of this turning point that we on this podcast we're really tracking and seeking to make sense of in real time, you write, in the blazing hot months of late summer 2020, with the pandemic showing no signs of abating, the loose coalition of anti-vaxxers, anti-traffickers, anti-5G activists, COVID conspiracy theorists, anti-globalists, wellness advocates, terrified mothers, and crusaders for trafficked children, except not really, right, hit the streets and began to march. They organized in cities all over America and around the world, often with little cohesion in their messaging, but with awareness and outrage in their hearts, and with QAnon slogans on their signs. So this does seem to be the point in the story where QAnon jumps the boundaries of being mostly about the Chans and the ardent Trumpists and crosses over into mommy blogger, Instagram influencer, yoga and wellness world. How did you track that happening?
It was a lot. I didn't go to any of the protests, mostly for COVID reasons. I've got young kids and, I just couldn't take any chances, but there were enough people there who were filming, like the QAA guys went to the LA one. And I was able to kind of get the sense of people who were just mad and they were mad that they were locked down. They were mad that things weren't going their way, but there wasn't really any drive to this. There was no goal. I write about some of these, videos that were taken. There are people just sort of milling around. Some people don't even look like they're there on purpose. And it's funny because that's a lot of what you also see with the Capitol riot. You have some people who are there, like they are hardcore there. They're going to hang Mike Pence. And then you got people who are just like, hey, I'm here. I'm taking a selfie. I don't have any goal. Don't arrest me.
It's Magapalooza.
Magapalooza, yeah.
And then there's the one guy who's like having that intense argument with the Capitol Police, saying, "What are you doing?"
And it's like everybody's there for their own conspiracy theory, and they're all just there together, reveling in them having the secret truth. And by that point, it really wasn't even about Q anymore. There's a great, God, it's one of my favorite moments in the book where one of the big Q influencers, Jordan Sather, he tweets like, "I bet that guy's never read a Q drop in his life." And he's the guy holding a "Where we go, when we go" all sign with a skull mask.
Yeah, doesn't he have an AR-15 as well? Like this, he's pretty serious.
So, yeah. Yeah, it's like, that's amazing. I mean, this is your move.
Tourist.
Jordan Sather, who should point out, because he's such a Q alien guy, but also has his own line of protein supplements. He very much fits in the profile of the crossover from the right wing over to wellness.
Yeah, it's secret space program. It's medical bleach. It's Epstein. It's anti-vax. I mean, it's everything.
And getting ripped.
Yeah.
Getting ripped.
And raising your T level.
Right.